next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Our aim never disappoint, so we have coincidentally stumbled on a legendary. Wait until they see us now. Waiting for the opportune time to show them this new power of mine. Wailing Woods is where we landed. We're 2 rows and next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Wailing Woods is where we landed. We're 2 rows and next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Our aim never disappoint, so we have coincidentally stumbled on a legendary. Wait until they see us now. Waiting for the opportune time to show them this new power of mine. Wailing Woods is where we landed. We're 2 rows and next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Wailing Woods is where we landed. We're 2 rows and next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Unplugged Unfiltered. I am Brian Clements, and alongside me, not actually alongside me, this direction, over there, we have Bob Clements joining us. Actually, reverse. He is actually down at the podcast studio, or his office, where our podcast studio is at, and I am at the lake. So, little switcheroo.
How did that happen?
I don't know. I'm not sure, but I am not going to complain because it has been great down here for the last couple of days. So
cool.
Can't complain. But I'm excited. This is we've talked a little bit about this subject in previous podcasts. We talked about it with Mike and Cass. I talked about it with Seth. We've talked about it with Drew. We talked about it with Anthony. And that subject is sales. Well, as you can see from the title, the death of the unsold dream. As an entrepreneur, you can dream and you can create incredible products. But if you don't know how to sell that product, your dream is going to die right then and there, because I've never known a successful business that didn't sell something. So luckily, we have the master of sales training himself as the other host of Unplugged Unfiltered. So tonight we are going to quiz Bob on questions about sales. Why is sales important? How do you become a salesperson if you've never been a salesperson before? And then how do you use that in your entrepreneurial journey to become a more successful entrepreneur and help drive your business's success? So Bob, thanks for joining us, and look forward to having you back down here at the lake here in the next couple of days.
Exactly right. I'll be joining you down there.
Absolutely. So I'm excited, and tell everybody why I take a drink of water, or when I take a drink of water. Tell everybody everyone kind of knows your sales stories, right? But when did you become passionate about sales? Was it something you were always passionate about, or was it something that kind of grew on you? And what made you really say, I'm going to take this steps into doing sales training, sales consulting? Sure. So walk us a little bit through that.
Yeah. Was I passionate about sales in the beginning? I was born and raised on a dairy farm, so selling was the part of the thing from my mind. Went to school, got out of school, decided that I didn't want to be a teacher because you couldn't make any money back 50 years ago. And everybody told me I should get into sales because they said, Bob, you have a gift that God has handed out to just a rare few people, which is the gift of gab. I learned later on that that actually is a curse in sales, not a gift. And I happened at that time, got out, and I ended up going to work for a company that sold. And some of you will know what these are, some of you won't, but they were called typewriters. So before we had computers, we had typewriters. And I went to work for a company that sold typewriters. They had a thing called a correcting typewriter. So if you made a mistake, you could hit a little key, X key on the keyboard, and your typewriter would back up one space. You could then retype the wrong letter, and it put white where that letter was, and it would stay there, and you typed your new letter, and then you move forward. So that's how I got into the business of sales. It was really, I won't say it was by accident, but I wanted to make money. I knew I couldn't make money as a teacher. And I got into it. The company I worked for, it was a company out of Italy called Olivetti, huge company over there. Their training was like, hang in there. And that was their training program back 50 years ago. They had a product that was unique, one of a kind. And that's really how I got started in it, and did great because in the beginning I didn't have any competition. Nobody else out there had a machine that would do that. So I had about a year where I was like the king of the mountain. I thought it was because I was a great salesperson. Come to find out, I just didn't have any competition.
Yeah.
So when a little company called IBM came along with a product that everybody knew IBM and very few people knew already. Then I had to make a decision, Brian, because I went from the heights of exhilaration to the depths of despair in about 2 months. Because everybody knew of IBM. I mean, they were still a powerhouse, but back then they were like, you take 40, 50 years ago, IBM would be like Apple or Google or companies like that. They were massive and powerful. And I was just this stupid guy from Northwest Missouri that thought he knew something, and come to find out their people were better trained than me. The challenge was I had to learn sales because I'd started spending money like I was going to make a lot forever. And ultimately, I had to learn sales, and that's really, it's really what happened. It was kind of an accident getting into it. Greatest accident that's ever happened in my life. I love sales, but just like everybody else, I didn't know anything about it, and so I had to learn to sell. And I really spent my whole life now constantly learning because there's new things that we're uncovering about people and why people buy and how to read people. But that's how I started my company as a sales training company back 40 years ago, and still do a lot of sales training today.
Well, and one of the things that you said, I mean, to me, sales is constantly evolving, right? Is how you sell to a customer 20 years ago is a lot different than how you sell to a customer today. There's a lot of similarities, but there's also a lot of different opportunities that we have now that, again, you didn't have. If you had TikTok back when you were selling the typewriters, you could have done a lot of promotions, and you could have
exactly. Yeah, we've talked about that many times. So it's easier to fail quickly now than it was back then. Okay, so it took a long time to fail back then. Today you can fail in one post and do that. So but that's it. But I don't know. You talk about selling has changed. Really, people still buy the same way they've always bought. What's changing is our understanding of how to read people. We have a lot more. I mean, that's the thing that I teach people, that I teach to sell, is how to read people and understand that most of the products today are similar to other products. I think when I first started selling, Brian, products were very unique and different. I had a product that was no other product out there was even like it in the marketplace. It was a typewriter, it was mechanical. To create one that you would compete against, we would probably take a company 3 years to do something like that. Where today everything is electronic and stuff, and it doesn't take long to have a product that's unique to then be just like another product out there. I mean, if you look at iPhone, you look at Samsung, and things like that. So those things happen pretty fast. But I would say, for the most part, people haven't changed. People still buy the same way today they bought 50 years ago. I think the mistake that people make is in selling, and I try to teach this to all the salespeople I train, is that you have to understand that people are not logical. The biggest mistake I think people make in sales, Brian, is they think, well, I can out-logic this person and get them to buy from me. But people aren't logical. They don't make decisions based upon logic. 90% of all the decisions that people make in their life are emotion-based, not logic-based. And the challenge with sales training, which is why I started my company, is all the sales training 30, 40 years ago was based upon a concept called feature benefit selling. And it worked great 40 years ago because there were products that truly were unique. And so it had a feature that was unique to that product that nobody else had. And then this was the benefit to it. Well, today, that doesn't work anymore. Yeah. And I still see a lot of people who are trying to learn how to sell, who are going through what we call the old feature benefit selling process. And that's the problem. You have to understand that people buy based upon emotion. And I tell salespeople the most important thing in sales is that they buy based upon your emotion. If you're excited, if you're pumped up, if you're passionate about what you're doing, people are going to feel that and they want a part of that. Yeah. And that's I think the thing that people that are in sales have to understand. It's not about the product. It's about you and your passion and your ability to communicate that passion to other people.
Yeah. Well, and I think that creating that passion, that's something, is what you were doing with the typewriter. It was a one of a kind. No one else out there was doing that. I'm doing the same thing. And with our software, it's no one else is doing what we're doing. There's other softwares out there. Yes. But do they have the auto correcting features? No.
Exactly.
And so doing that is people are already excited about that. But if I came into them and said, hey, so I have this software, it's pretty okay. They're gonna be like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna buy that. But we're building it up, and we're actually getting ready to do some big media launches and just build a lot of excitement where people go, I want to be part of this. I want to be part of the future. I want to take my business, my dealership, and become not just a dealership, but a dealership of the future, using the most and the best and the greatest technology that's out there. And I would say for me, so as we were kind of, doing this, one of the questions that really kind of came up, and I've been around, of course, my whole life. So sales, it's not something that I would say I'm necessarily passionate about, but it's something I do understand because, well, I grew up listening to you talk about sales all the time. And as you were talking about how, people don't make logical decisions, they make emotional decisions. Right. I always go back to your talk where you go, how many people made or got married to their spouse based off a logical decision? Right. How many people did it emotional? How many people wish they had done it on a logical decision? But we make so many decisions off of emotional based. And it's really interesting because you see that like on TikTok Shop, on whatnot. All of these different live social platforms, the people who do really good selling live, they took QVC and then it made it an entertainment factor, and so I go on to a live stream and you're like, oh, well, I actually don't need that pair of shoes, but I kind of want those pair of shoes now. Not because I need them and not because I necessarily have the money to spend on them, but they made it seem really awesome. And I just watched 300 other people buy shoes. I want to buy these shoes.
Well, and that's a big piece of it. I think, as you're talking about your software, if you were to have taken this software concept 3 years ago, I think it would have been a hard sell because 3 years ago, people were really not tuned in to AI, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you had Alexis and you had some things that were a little bit AI, but I think you're at a point now where everybody's starting to understand AI and what it can do and how you can leverage it. And I think that's going to be the big thing. I mean, that's why I think it's going to explode. And just for the simple fact is everybody that I talk to goes like, oh man, this is so cool. This is so cool. As I tell people, AI, your software can take an average employee to make them a superstar just by 100%. Simply using your software. But that to me is the exciting part about it. It's that kind of emotional piece as you're going through it. But I think the other thing again, is I try to get especially new salespeople to understand is that a lot of salespeople struggle, Brian, entrepreneurs struggle because what they try to be is a salesperson. They said, well, I need to be a salesperson. And I always tell people, well, people hate salespeople. Okay, so why would you want to be one, right? I mean, the average salesperson doesn't even like salespeople. Okay.
Yes.
And so there's such a negative perception of sales people specifically that I always tell my people is what you want to do is look at what people think salespeople do and do the opposite. Okay.
Yes.
Because again, it's the wall in sales. You start off with no wall or maybe a small wall. The worse you are at selling, the bigger the wall you create that you have to climb over, and you get to a point where you can't get over it anymore, right?
Yes.
So I tell people when you meet somebody in the beginning that you don't know, there's a little bit of a wall that's there. It just exists, right? It's kind of like a speed bump in a parking lot. So there's a small one there. The more you try to sell somebody, that speed bump becomes a wall and a bigger wall, bigger wall, bigger wall. So I always tell salespeople the number one thing is just understand that don't be a salesperson. So many people are taught when they meet somebody they should always reach out and shake their hand, and I go, that's what every salesperson does. 60% of the people do not like to be touched by someone they've never met before. So the last thing you want to do as a salesperson is shake somebody's hand that you've never met before. Okay.
Yeah.
Or people say, look them in the eyes. Well, there's about 60% of people that do not like a lot of eye contact when they're communicating. So those are the things I think for most people, Brian, that are new entrepreneurs that are trying to sell, is you really have to change entirely your thought about, well, this is what salespeople do. And what you really want to say is, this is what salespeople do. God help me not to do any of those things. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's the piece to me is I try to teach salespeople is, you got to be different. That's what people are looking for.
Well, and that's, kind of going to that first question, is when you're selling for the first time and someone just goes, I'm not a salesperson. I think to the point that you were saying is that's a good thing, right?
It's exactly right.
It's a good thing because every time I pull onto a car dealership lot, whether I'm taking my car in to get service for the 20,000th time because I bought a lemon, and warranty has replaced basically the whole car at this point. And then I'm walking around the lot and I see 4 people walk out the door, and it's just like, oh dear God, leave me alone. I don't want to talk to you. I have no desire to buy a vehicle, specifically from you, because this is, I was saying sarcastically, but realistically, I think my car has been in the shop since I've owned it for the last year 12 times for, I don't know, a muffler falling off or the transmission going out, or it's
We're
like,
not talking about an old car here, by the way. This is a very expensive, newer car.
Yes. Yeah. So, you walk out and you're like, oh, and they're like, well, sorry to hear about that. Maybe it's time for you to trade it in for the newest model. It's like, well, why would no? I have no desire to buy another one of these with the experience that I'm having currently. So, but I think as a first-time salesperson, when someone who goes, I'm just not a salesperson. First off, I think that's good, right? It's don't try to be a salesperson. Build a relationship first. But what would your advice be to someone who has to be somewhat of a salesperson, right? You have to understand sales to some extent to sell your product. But is it, I would say, and I don't know, I was trying to think on the questions that we had, and I might be jumping around a little bit here, but when it comes to it, what is more important, would you say, to sales? Is it more important to sell your product or sell yourself?
Well, you always sell yourself first. So I tell people don't buy products and services, Brian, they buy people. And so you have to understand in sales is that you're the first product that has to be sold. Mm-hmm. And that's your primary objective. So if I meet you for the first time, you're not going to listen to anything I have to say or share with you about my product until I get you comfortable with me. And so the most important thing in sales is understanding that comfort is the key. If I can get you comfortable, then you will open up to me and I can start asking you what we call discovery questions. I can start asking you questions that will help me understand how to position you, how to help me position you so that you would have interest in this.
Yeah.
But I think that's the number one thing. And a lot of people just don't understand how to make people comfortable. And you know, one of the things that I do in my sales training, and we do it in a theoretical way, but I tell my people, I said, if you had to for lunch today, if I told you to go to Hardee's, McDonald's, or Burger King and walk up to somebody you've never met before and convince them to buy you lunch, right? What would you do? And I'm going to make you leave your billfold or your purse here. So if you're going to do that, right, and you're going to convince somebody to buy you lunch, what would you do? And people talk about, oh, I would do this or I do this. And I go, well, none of those things would work because you're missing the point. The most important thing in sales is people like people who are like themselves.
Yeah.
Opposites do not attract in human beings, especially in sales. People like things that are similar to things that they understand. So I tell people again, you know, I'm a 70-year-old guy, so I wouldn't walk up to a 30-year-old young woman and try to convince her to buy me lunch. I would find somebody that's about my size, about my age, and I'd say, hey, I've got a training class I'm going to right now, and they made me leave my billfold at the classroom. And the assignment was for me to get somebody to buy me lunch today. Would there be any way at all that you would help me do that?
Yeah.
So I tell people, just be honest with people, okay, and ask for their help. The most important thing in sales is to ask the customer for their help. Help me understand what you're looking for. Help me understand how I can help you with this. And I tell people that's really the key to it, is understanding that almost all people want to help other people. There's a few that don't, but that's a rarity. Most people want to help people. And so again, if I were selling to somebody I never met before, I'd say, help me understand this, or help me help you get to this point. The other thing I think again is just watching and looking at people to see if they're comfortable or not. One of the things I teach the people that I train in sales is to learn to read people's faces, right?
Yeah.
Everything that you need to know about a person shows up on their face. If I walked up to you, Brian, and the first thing I would do is I'd look at your eyebrows, and this sounds strange, but your eyebrows up tells me your mind is open and comfortable. Your eyebrows down tell me that you're closed and want to be left alone. So
absolutely.
If you walked into a car dealership I might be at, and I don't have a car dealership, nor do I plan to have one, but the first thing I would do is I'd walk up to you, I would introduce myself. I'd say, hi, my name is Bob Clements. I work here. And then I would look at your eyebrows. If your eyebrows are up, I know that you're ready to be interacted with. And I would say, hi, my name is Bob Clements. I work here. So what brought you in today? You always lead with a question. If your eyebrows were down, I would say, hi, my name is Bob Clements and I work here. If you have any questions or you need anything, just let me know. I'll be right over there, and leave them alone. Let them get comfortable. And so I teach salespeople, that's a part of it. That comfort is the big piece. The very first thing you have to do in sales is you've got to get people comfortable. And most salespeople, the first thing they do is try to sell them something, which then makes people uncomfortable. And the more uncomfortable a person is, Brian, the quicker they will leave you. I mean, that's
absolutely. Well, and again, it's people, like you said, people buy people. You know,
right.
And we talked about this all the time, and I know you guys still talk about this all the time in dealerships, right? Is when someone walks into a dealership, I don't need to, inside of my dealership, advertise all my brands, right? People walked in because of the brands I have, but they're going to buy from me because of my story. The salespeople who do the best are the ones who have pictures of their families and their kids on their desk. They're buying, looking at little Johnny going, oh, like, this is great, you know. And now if I had things that were all just, oh, is this Honda? Oh, let me show you my new race bike. Let me show you my new Corvette. Let me show you. And you go, okay, well, I'm going to buy from the guy over here who's got 3 kids he's taking care of. They buy that way more than they buy from any type of a cocky salesperson, right? Especially for me, if I walk into a dealership, I'm trying to buy something and the person is cocky and overconfident, that is the quickest way for me to go, man, I'll find somebody else. Right.
Yeah, I think it's like you say, again, if you're bringing people into your business or to an office or whatever, having things that really reflect who you are. I go into an office there and all of a sudden I see there's a salesperson, he's got all these awards and all this stuff like this. And that kind of turns me off because I'm like, I don't want to be one of your trophies. Okay. The greatest salesperson in the world I'm in front of now, probably not for me. So I think that's a piece of it. The other thing I think, again, Brian, is getting people to understand that selling isn't telling. Selling is asking questions and listening. So the mistake that I think a lot of salespeople make is they get a person comfortable, then they go into this stupid rehearsed presentation, this thing, they just puke forth all this information on people, and our people are wiping it off of themselves. And I tell salespeople, your job is to shut up, ask a question, shut up, and listen. You don't have to talk a lot in sales. What you have to do is ask questions, just like you with software. If I were selling your software, I would say, gosh, I know a lot of dealers out there struggle with software, the different types of software they have. Tell me a little bit about your software and some of the struggles you're having. I'm never going to talk about Triton in the beginning, right?
Absolutely.
What I want to do is I want them to feel the pain of what they have to deal with every day. And then ultimately I say, well, it sounds to me like you struggle with this sometimes. I said, if there was an option that would be like an Advil, a Tylenol, an aspirin that would take away that pain, would you be at least open to taking a look at it? And people go like, well, hell yes. I just went through agony telling you everything I hate about this.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I didn't ask you to buy it. I just said, would you be willing to take a look at it? Would you be willing to let me tell you a little bit more about it? Would you be willing to get your hands on it, try it out? So again, I think that's the mistake that people make. I mean, really it's about again, it's the emotion that you're doing there. But again, it's asking questions, shutting up, and listening. And I tell salespeople, if you just shut up, ask the right question, shut up, people will tell you everything you need to know to get them to buy from you. Everything. Yeah. People are like open books.
Well, and I mean, so you talk about the listening side of things, but like with listening, as a brand new salesperson, what would you say some key tricks or tips would be to listening and how to respond properly? So, what are some cues that you could say, okay, this person, I moved them from, someone who is a tire kicker to now maybe a prospect, or a qualified lead. So if I'm asking a question for someone on the software and I say, so tell me about your pain points as an entrepreneur, what would be 2 or 3 key things that if someone said these key things, I could say, okay, this now then leads me into my next set of questions, or I need to, if I hear these 3 things, I need to maybe back away and say, okay, let's come at this from a different approach. Well, are there 2 or 3 things that would say?
Absolutely. So this is what we would call it. Back up. Yeah, this is in sales what we would call the discovery process. So if you and I met the very first time, right? I probably know quite a bit about you and your software you're using. I probably know all of that. I will have done some research on that. Yeah. But you don't know that I know that, right? And if I make you feel like I know a lot about you, that tends to make you uncomfortable, right? It's like, well, how the hell do you know this much about me? So the first thing that you always do in sales is, I always tell people, again, if it's a retail situation, don't say, can I help you? Because that's like a Pavlovian trigger. And people say, no, I think I'm just looking. I say the first question you should always ask if you're doing retail is, so what brought you in today? Yeah. So what brought you in today, right? So that's a question. It's called an open sense question. I'll talk about that in just a moment. But what brought you in today? And they may say, well, I'm looking about this, or I'm looking about this. And I go, oh, that's great. I said, so what do you have now? So my second question always is, so what do you have now? What software are you using now? What phone system are you using now? How are you handling this now? The first thing you want to do is get them talking about what they have. Or if they don't have it yet, what have they looked at that they like? So the first thing I always tell people is this, so what do you have now? The second question is, what do you like most about it? So if they have something they're using now, don't start get them to talk about the negative things in the beginning, because now they know you're trying to sell them. So if I'm talking to them about software, let's say that you're using ABC software. Well, so what do you have now? I have ABC software. And I go, well, what do you like most about ABC software? Well, we really like this, we really like this, really like this. So now what they're telling me are the things that they need. Keep in
Yeah.
mind, people buy what they need. They pay a lot for what they want. And so the key in
Absolutely.
sales again, because want is an emotion, need is a necessary. So,
Mhm.
what do you like most about it? Typically, they're going to say 2 or 3 things that gives me their needs. And then the next question I say, well, so if you could change or improve your software, if you could change or improve this, if you could change or improve what you have now, what would you do to make it better? This
Yeah.
now is where you're going to get their sales point. Okay, so what would
Okay.
you do to take what you have now and make it better? Oh my God, I wish they had better customer support, or I wish it was easy to train my people on. These are the things that are their pain points. These are their emotional points. And so that's the first thing I do is, what do you have now? What do you like most about it? If you can change or improve or make it better, what would you do to make it better? And
Yeah.
those 3 things right there will take you 80% down the sales path. The other thing, though, Brian, and you talk about what should you listen for, and I try to teach salespeople that part of what we have to understand is, how do people actually communicate? How do people understand things? And the mistake that I see a lot of salespeople make is, salespeople try to sell people the way the salesperson themselves would buy. And the challenge with that is only about 25% of the population, Brian, will buy the way you would buy.
Yeah.
75% will buy in a different way. That's why most salespeople's closing ratio is 25 to 30%. So you
Okay.
have to understand. So, okay, there's 4 different types of buying styles. There's drivers, influencers, steadies, and thinkers. So the first thing you have to do is figure out what's this person's buying style. And you can tell their buying style by looking at their mouth. Drivers are people that are very strong. They're what you might call type A personalities. But when you see them the first time, their mouth is always going to be tight and their eyebrows are going to be down, almost like they want to fight. They
Yeah.
represent about 14% of the population. You have influencers, big smile, eyebrows real high up. Steadies, nice neighborly friendly smile, eyebrows up a little bit. And then thinkers always kind of have that skeptical or quizzical look about them. So you have to kind of figure out what's their buying style, because those 4 styles buy differently. Then the other piece, Brian, and this is where I tell people, again, learn to listen, shut up and listen, and then watch the face. I need to find out, do you learn things by seeing things? Do you learn things by hearing things? Or do you learn things by touching things, experiencing
Yeah.
things? I always tell salespeople, I said, if you had to remember something quickly and retain the information, this is how you can tell, by the way, watching this podcast, what you are here. So if you need to learn something quickly and retain the information, would you prefer that I showed you how to do something, explained to you how to do something, or just got out of the way and let you get your hands on it? And I said, however you answer that question tells me your learning style. So if you're a person that would rather have me show you how to do something, you're what we call a visual person. So when I'm asking you questions and I'm presenting to you, I want to put it in a visual context. Well, take a look at this, or how do you see yourself using this? Have you seen something like this before? Do you have a better picture of how this would work? I literally change my vocabulary into a more visual context, because that's how their brain works.
Yeah.
If they said, well, I would prefer that you explain it to me. Now I know they're what we call an auditory processor. And so I said, well, tell me a little bit about what you're doing. How does that sound to you? Tell me if you could do that. Does that sound right to you? So I would literally change my language again around that auditory context, and I would start using words like that. They say, just get out of the way and let me get my hands on it. They're what we call a kinesthetic learner. And I'd say, well, how do you feel about this? You have a grasp on how that would work? Do you feel like you can get your arms around this? Again, I change, and this is what I teach salespeople to do. I literally change my language style to match their processing style.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing that I think most salespeople don't understand is very few people will buy the way you buy. You have to, this goes back, Brian, to asking questions, shutting up and listening. But if I just ask a question, so what brought you in today? And they go, well, my wife and I are looking at this. And when I ask that question, Brian, if they're visual, their eyes will always look up. They may go left or right. I don't have time to talk about that, but they will always go up. So when I ask a person a question, I listen to what they're saying, and I'm also watching their eyes. And if I ask them a question, their eyes go up, I know they're visual. If I ask them a question and their eyes go to their ears, I know they're auditory. And if I ask them a question and their eyes go down, I know they're kinesthetic. So I tell salespeople, you've got to learn to read people, right? That's the key to it. And then when I'm working with somebody, I can just change the structure of how I'm selling to match what they want to do.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where you have to become kind of that undercover boss kind of mentality, is because you have
Exactly.
to have not so heavily scripted things, but you have to understand it's, okay, well, let me tell you about this, or how does that sound to you? Or
Exactly, Brian.
what does this look like? You have to be able to change those verbiages, and it's instantly. It's something that is super instantaneous. This is not something that you didn't find out that they were auditory learner over 20-minute conversation. You found that out in the first 30 seconds of your conversation. I mean, so you've looked at their eyebrows, right, to see how inviting they are.
Are eyebrows up, mind is open. Eyebrows down, mind is closed.
Yep.
First
And
thing
then
you're looking for is eyebrows.
and then also looking at, as you're looking at their eyebrows, you're also looking at their mouth to figure
Right.
out, okay, what is their buying
Their
style?
buying style, absolutely.
And then what is their learning style, which is that auditory, visual, or kinesthetic. So
Exactly.
within a 30-second period, you have learned everything you need to know to hit every part of their buying style. And then that comes into that mirroring and matching. And you talk a lot about mirroring and matching. You have talked a lot about mirroring, and that's not actually I don't think, anywhere on our talking points for tonight. But talk a little bit about mirroring and matching, because and I think mirroring and matching, going from in person, what does it look like in person, right? It's if I'm at the expo and I'm selling my software, right?
Sure.
My mirroring and matching is going to look a little bit different, but yet have a lot of the same techniques as if I'm doing a virtual sales. I mean, a lot of sales have moved to a virtual side. It used to be a lot of, hey, I'm in person, we're having these conversations. And in dealerships and businesses, you still have a lot of that, but we are moving more and more into a virtual sales position. So how do you mirror and match in person? How do you mirror and match on the virtual world? And then how do those worlds come together so you can maybe start a conversation either in person and then move it to virtual, or vice versa? You start virtual and then say, hey, I talked to this person about our software. They're going to be at the expo, and I'm going to meet them in person at the expo, and I need to close the deal at the expo. So kind of explain mirroring and matching, and then what are those maybe two style, what connects, what are, works the exact same, and then maybe what's different between the two versions, if there are anything different.
Yeah, so there are. So just to start off with mirroring and matching. So the first thing we have to do is get people comfortable with us. Okay, and we do it at a subconscious level. This is the other thing I try to tell salespeople. The sale takes place in the mind before it takes place outside of the body. And so what the easiest thing to do is just to get subconsciously into people's mind. And so there's a process that psychologists will tell you, that's a process called mirroring or matching. And what that really means, Brian, is if, let's say you're at the Equip Expo, which you're going to be with your software, and there's somebody that's standing there and they have their arms crossed like this, and they're looking at you. And let's say you have a tablet in your hand. So if I were training you, I would say, put your tablet down, walk up to them, cross your arms, and say, hey, my name is Bob Clements. So what brought you here today? So I was going to say, the first thing I was going to do is go up and give them a big hug. No,
like, well, you look grumpy. You need a hug.
Yeah, they're not grumpy. This is just this is their style. So you become a mere reflection of them. That's all mirroring and matching is. If they're sitting there and they got their right hand in their pocket, then you put your tablet down, put your right hand in your pocket, and you go up and approach them. And you stay 4 or 5 feet away from them. You don't want to get in that level of comfort here. But it's simply becoming like them. That's all it is. I tell people, we do a lot in the ag industry. You've got a farmer out there that's leaning on a tractor. Go up and lean on a tractor that's next to him, or lean on the front of that if he's leaning on the back, and say, hey, my name is Bob Clements. So what brought you in today? Lean with him. Subconsciously, almost instantaneously, Brian, they start to go, wow, you and I are alike. That's your goal in sales. I want the customer to feel like I'm like them. So mirroring is being a mere reflection. Matching, if you were standing next to him, you would just be matching. So if I'm next to you, I'm going to match you. If I'm across from you, I'm going to be a mere reflection. So that's what mirroring and matching is. And literally, I could take somebody I've never met before in my life in a matter of probably 5 seconds. We would be totally comfortable with each other. And I would not have said anything other than I would be standing like they're standing. So that's what you do is mirroring matching. The second part to mirroring matching is because that gets people comfortable. What we have to do if we're going to close a sale is move people from comfortable to confident. Okay, and so if I'm mirroring and matching you, mirroring and matching tends to be your body's relaxed. And again, I just want you to be a mere reflection of that. What I need to do at a point in sales is to get you confident. And so if I'm mirroring matching you for, let's say, 30 seconds, in about 30 seconds or less, if I move my body, you will actually move your body to start matching me. Subconsciously, you won't even think about it. You just subconsciously. So if I uncrossed my arms, Brian, and your arms were crossed, you would just simply uncross your arms. And then what I would do is stand up a little straighter, step forward a little bit. You would stand up a little straighter, step forward. And you're not even aware you're doing this. This happens at the subconscious level. And at that moment, you're standing up and moving forward. You've now moved from comfortable to confident. Now I can start closing the sale. Yeah. I mean, it's literally that simple to do. So it takes some practice, but that's what you do.
Yeah. So I mean, you're realistically you're looking at someone, right? And I'm going to look at them as I'm now their mirror reflection. I'm looking at them as a mirror, and I'm going to copy exactly what they're doing. Does that apply? So I've got this is a two-part question. Sure. Does that apply to vocals? Do you mirror and match them on the vocal side of things? And then also, what is your take on mirroring or matching them in a appearance, like a physical appearance? So, an example of that, if a farmer walks into an ag dealership, are they going to buy from the guy in jeans and boots, or is he going to buy from the salesperson who's wearing $1,000 slacks, nice dress shoes? Like, does having a different look than your customer or your demographic change the outcome of a potential sale?
Well, yeah. If you look like you've never done what you're saying you're going to do, people won't buy from you. Mirroring and matching works in clothes. You want to look like your customer's advisor. You want to dress like your customer, but just a touch better, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you wear a polo shirt and jeans, right? Or a button-down collar, but you're not in a tie. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's kind of how it used to be, but that's not how it is anymore. So mirroring and matching is everything. I mirror match. So understand communication happens. Only 7% of the communication between human beings is because of what you say. So your words have very little meaning. Okay. So that's why I tell salespeople, don't worry about what you're going to say, because nobody really listens to your words anyway. 38% is because of your tonality, the tone and pace of your voice. Okay. If you sound excited, even if you're not using the right words, people pick up the tone and pace more than they pick up words. And then 55% of our communication is because of a thing called physiology. How my body is relative to your body. This is a thing called congruency. The more I'm like you, the more we're congruent, the more comfortable you become with me. So you're doing it all. It's just like we're doing on a Zoom meeting. So if I were selling on a Zoom meeting, you're a visual person, right? Okay, so visual people tend to use their hands a lot. Here's the picture, here's what I see. Yeah. So again, I'm the same way. So it's easy for you and I to communicate because we both have kind of the same learning style. But I would say again, if I weren't visual, but I saw you moving your hands just like you do when you talk, I would be doing the same thing as I talk, because you subconsciously are picking up on that. Okay, the other piece, Brian, is again, even though I can't physically see your whole body, right? I can see that, and if I see you're drinking periodically when you do it, out of your cup, I would probably have a bottle of water or something. I would periodically do that too. Subconsciously, you're totally oblivious to it at the conscious level. Subconsciously, I'm building in that rapport that I need to build there. So those are some things I do. The other kind of cool thing, Brian, is if I set the way you set and I do what you do, automatically the tone and pace of my voice starts to match yours. So let's say you're at the expo again, you're face to face with somebody. If you're standing the way they stand when you talk, you will literally have the same tone and pace in your voice that they have in theirs. So that's kind of the cool thing about mirroring matching. It's just, if you can understand, and it's really simple to do, If you can just understand it, almost all the rapport you need to be built, you could build by just doing a few simple things like that.
Yeah. Well, and it's really one of those, once you kind of learn how to do it, it becomes a very natural thing. And I notice it. So we use a company called Firefly AI that records all of our company meetings. And it's really interesting to watch and look at the analytics, because it really breaks down like words per minute. And there's some people that I meet with, specifically on the development side, my words per minute are typically a lot slower than they are when I'm talking to the COO. The COO and we both talk at like 200 words per minute, and that's just, and it works, and it makes us feel comfortable. But when I'm talking to someone else, I might go from 200 words per minute down to 110, 105, just because that's how they speak, that's how they communicate. And I've found that I can speak for 2 hours at 200 words per minute, and get the same result as if I cut my words per minute in half and spoke for an hour. As long as I'm creating that connection, I'm mirroring and communicating that to them in the style that they want to, I can do what it would take me 2 hours to do it in 1 hour, as long as I change my style. And it becomes very natural. And I think that kind of going into our next question is how, based off of all of these things. So we're mirroring and matching, we're learning their buying styles, we're learning their learning styles, we're reading their body language, we're looking at their eyes, we're doing all of this. If you apply all of those things, does that make selling become more natural? How do you keep from feeling selly to a customer and make it feel natural? If you do those things, is that going to instantly create that natural feeling, or is there other things maybe that you might have to do to create a natural?
I think naturally, if your customer's comfortable with you, you're comfortable, then selling's easy. You're not selling. And I tell people again, what you're trying to do is guide people to a decision, right? And you do that through asking those discovery questions, and kind of going through that thing there. But if you're comfortable, your customer's comfortable. If you're nervous, they're nervous. You have to understand that your customer becomes a reflection of you. And your primary goal is to be comfortable. If you're nervous and anxious, they're going to be nervous and anxious. Okay, and people don't buy when they're nervous and anxious. People buy when they're comfortable. But again, it's you just have to get out of your brain that selling is about being a different type of person. I tell people, no mother in the delivery room ever gave birth to a salesperson. Okay. They didn't go, oh my God, look, the greatest salesperson in the world just was birthed today. That didn't happen, right? What people that are great salespeople have trained themselves to read people, right? It's not about your product. It's not about your service. It's about your ability to read people and then communicate to those people in a way that they need it. And I think that's the issue. I mean, most of the salespeople I train have probably a 45 to 50% closing ratio, where the average salesperson has maybe a 25. And it's not because my people are better salespeople. My people that I train are really good at getting people comfortable. That's what I teach. Once you understand that, everything else is easy.
Yeah. So we've created a comfortable, natural selling environment, but let's say the customer's like, I really like this. This is great. I think that it would be very, very needed in our business or in my personal life, but the price is just too high.
Well, then I say it sucks to be a poor person. That's what I would
yeah.
I would say that at home. So your price is too high, or it costs too much, Brian. I've been selling for 50 years. And the number one objection when I started selling was your price is too high or it costs too much. And the number one objection today salespeople get is, oh, by the way, your price is too high and it costs too much. As I said before, selling really hasn't changed how people buy. But the other thing to keep in mind, so let's say, Brian, you and I are working together, and let's say we're talking about the software, okay? And as we're laying things out, and you say, what's this and what's this and what's this, and finally we get to the point, and you say, well, gosh, Bob, this all sounds good, this all sounds great, but the price is just too high. So the first thing that you do when somebody gives you an objection, okay, is you agree with them. Okay, don't try to overcome the objection in the beginning, because that's what they think you're going to do when they give it to you. And the moment you try to fight them, you now look like a salesperson again. So if somebody said, Bob, your price is too high, I would laugh a little bit and I'd say, Brian, you're right. Today, everything is too expensive, isn't it? And then I shake my head like this. So I shake my head, Brian. Now I'm going back to leading and pacing them. Now they're agreeing with me without saying yes. So I just do a little head shake like this, and I'm just like you did. People will just automatically shake their head. And then I'd say, so today, Brian, everything's too expensive. Wouldn't you agree? And they're going to go, yeah, it really is, Bob. And I go, have you bought any eggs lately, or pick something, right? Beef, right? And they go, yeah, everything's too high. And I says, but let me ask you a question. Do you feel like my price is too high, or it's going to cost too much? So that's the first question I always lead with, because the key to answering an objection is not to answer it, but to ask another question. So I said, do you mean like you feel like my price is too high, or it costs too much? And they'll think for just a second. They go, well, what's the difference? I said, well, the price is what you're going to pay for it. Okay, the price is $2,750 a month. Okay, the cost is the price divided by how much time you can save in a month by using this software. How much time you can take off. You can take from writing a quote that takes 30 minutes down to the software will do that same quote in under 2 minutes. How many quotes a day, Bob, does your service department do that? You can save 3 hours a day just in your service department. Let's talk about parts. And so what I would do is start saying the price is the price. It's $2,750 a month. But the cost is the price divided by how much time that you gain, you save, you earn back. And then I would walk them through this process and say, ultimately, this software not only costs nothing, it makes you money, right? And let me show you how you can do that. So I tell people again, what you have to do is take it, and then this is a technique called reframing, right? But you reframe the argument, because what I wanted to do is say, well, what's the difference between cost and price? And price is what you pay for something. Cost is the price divided by something. Okay, over the same period of time. So that's the first thing I would do. Or, Brian, so if they said the price is too high, I always say, do you mean the price is too high or cost too much? If they say it's more than I want to spend, right, then you do basically the same thing. And I say, well, today, Brian, everything is more than I want to spend on it. Same with you. And they go, yeah, Bob, you're right. But then I say, Brian, but about how much too much is it? Well, it's really about $500 more a month than I'm spending now. So I would say, so Brian, let me ask you a question. I'm not saying I can do this, but if I could get rid of that $500, and I'm not saying I can, but if I could show you a way to get rid of this, are you telling me this is something you'd be interested in doing? They go, yeah, if you can show me how to do that. And I say, well, let's take a look at it. Sometimes we don't put things in the proper perspective, and I think we should, don't you? I shake my head, and they say yes. I say, so let's take a look at that $500. So on the average, it takes 30 minutes for your service manager to create a quote. This software will do it in 2 minutes. So how much time, if we save 3 hours a day on quotes, how much per day, Brian, how much more productive would your service manager be, right? Is that worth a couple $100 a day? Is it worth $100 a day, right? And so I would basically take the same method, but now instead of working off of $2,750, because they've already bought $2,250, all I got to do, Brian, is sell them the last $500 per month. But you use the exact same technique. But the most important thing, Brian, again, is when somebody gives you an objection, always agree with them. Yes. And then say, but sometimes we don't put things in the proper perspective, and I think we should, don't you? I teach all my salespeople to say that. Shake my head, and they go, yes. And then I just walk them through a process. So I think price is probably the easiest objection in the world to overcome. That to me is an easy one. Something that most salespeople fail on, because then they start to stammer and stutter and do the stuff like this. Whenever you're working with a customer, everything that comes out of your mouth has to come out with confidence. Absolutely. It's not the first time I've ever heard this, right? Well, I have a lot of people that tell me this, right? I told a person the other day, I was talking to a group of salespeople, and they said, well, so you just always agree with everything? And I said, absolutely. If somebody walked up to me and said, Bob, you are the dumbest human being I've ever met in my life, I would laugh and I say, I've had a lot of people tell me that, okay? And they kind of start to laughing, and it breaks it down. It makes them comfortable. And then I start having a conversation with them. I always agree with what everybody says, but I do it in a way that's kind of funny. It breaks the tension because once people start laughing, Brian, they're instantly comfortable, right? Keep in
Yes,
mind, once they
absolutely.
laugh, 100% rapport and 100% comfort is built there. So that's what I would do in that situation.
No, I mean, and that's great. I mean, because again, the whole thing when it comes to sales is you're not selling something, you're building a relationship, right? It's
Exactly.
every single sale that you're making. It's not about the product. It's not about what you. I will say that there's some people, right? There's 15% of people out there is you have the product and you have the lowest price they're going to buy from you,
That's
and
exactly right.
that's what it is. But for the other 85%, it's about building that relationship. And I think that building that relationship it's become a lost art in the world of online sales. I mean, I can get it on, everybody knows the website I'm talking about, and I can get free 1-day delivery, right? On every single thing. But the things that you can't buy that are delivered to your house same day or the next day, people want that relationship experience. They're coming to you for a specific reason, and you've got to really build that. And I think so. What I'm gonna say is, because we're running out of time. We're basically out of time. What I want to do is, this is going to be part one. Next week, I want to finish this conversation because I have a lot more questions, and we're going to do the death of the unsold dream part 2, which will be a first for us with Unplugged Unfiltered, is doing a 2-part podcast. But this really takes an entrepreneur from being an entrepreneur, a dreamer, to being an actual business owner. And that's where I want to get to in part 2, is saying, okay, I'm now, as an entrepreneur, I founded this, I built a product, I've got this. How do I start building my sales funnel, and how do I apply everything from this episode into my sales funnel so that I'm not just an entrepreneur, a visionary, a dreamer. I'm now an official business owner who is selling products. So next week, that is what we're going to talk about. Is going to be part 2 of the death of the unsold dream. And I encourage every single person on here to definitely tune in, because we're going to take everything that Bob talked about in this episode and say, how do you apply that 100% as an entrepreneur, not just as a salesperson? Because as a salesperson, right, your job is to sell. You're paid to sell. On entrepreneur, you either sell or you die. That is the reality of it. Mike and Cass will be very, very open with that. It's like, well, I can create a product, but if no one buys it, is it actually a product? And there's a lot of great examples of people out there who constantly pivoted to make a product that people wanted to buy. Jeff Bezos, you can either love him or you can hate him. Genius. And he's constantly pivoted to create a product that everyone wants to subscribe to. And now you have Amazon Prime TV, and they've got football games that are now just on. Like, he's pivoting to create all of these selling opportunities. But like I said, with that, we're going to do a part 2 for this, and really say, we now kind of understand selling styles. We understand mirroring and matching. We understand how to read people a little bit, understand what their buying styles are, understand how to make it not feel selly but natural. And now, how do I apply that to my product? Because there does have to be product knowledge. There does have to be the understanding and making sure that your product is sellable. And so I think that's what we're going to talk about next week for part 2 of Death of the Unsold Dream. So make sure everyone who's watching, everyone who watches the recording, go follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok. We're on all of the platforms. Follow us, subscribe, so that you do not miss next week's episode. Because we're going to take everything we learned here and then apply it to 100% apply it to the entrepreneurial dream next week. And if you don't do it, your dream is going to die unsold. So,
which is sad. We don't want our dreams to die. But yeah, Brian, that's exciting. I'm excited to continue on. like I say, there's a lot more we can talk about and do it. So looking forward to next week.
Yeah, no, it's great. So, well, with that, Bob, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to you getting back down here. We'll have a great time. I know you have grandkids who want to go tubing and want to go out and do some additional things. So looking forward to you being back down here and us being able to enjoy some time with you and Mom here at the lake. So with that, we're going to go ahead and unplug, but you guys all have an incredible night. Again, if you tuned in towards the end of this, I know I just saw a couple people tuning in. If you tuned in, go to unpluggedunfiltered.com. This podcast will be put on our in our library, so you can always watch it there, or you can go onto youtube.com and look up Unplugged Unfiltered, and you can see all of our past podcasts. So with that, thank you everyone who tuned in, and Bob, thanks for giving us some incredible wisdom on sales. And I look forward to next week of how we continue to take that from being a salesperson to being an entrepreneur and selling a product that no one ever has heard of or no one's ever believed in. And then one of the other things is, how do you build a sales team below you who may not have the passion that you have for your product, right? I can be super passionate about my software because, well, I have a lot invested in it, but I'm going to have to bring on a sales team. And so that's something I want to talk about too, is how do you then bring on salespeople to make sure that they have a passion and a drive for what you're building? So
that'd be great, because we help dealerships and businesses do it all the time. So anyway, looking forward to next week, Brian.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much. We will see you next Wednesday at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time, right here on Unplugged Unfiltered. You guys have a great night. We are unplugging.
Never disappoint, so we have coincidentally stumbled on a legendary. Wait until they see us now.